2001, US President George W. Bush announced the launch of a crusade.
You're either with us
or you are with the terrorists.
Seeing the planes crash into the Twin Towers and basically running back to school and telling everyone this is what I saw on TV.
and the media pumping out, Islam and Afghanistan and, Osama bin Laden and all this type of stuff.
They keep the door down. So they basically just told you, get out of your house.
Get out of your house.
Leave the car and you're free to go. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and today we are doing a special podcast in conjunction with Cage. Now, it's important to understand that in 2001, US President George W. Bush announced the launch of a crusade. Since then, we saw 20 years of illegal wars, carpet bombings, drone assassinations, arbitrary detention, torture, and mass displacement in the Muslim world. Us being from a Western democracy, being from the UK, we also saw the enaction of countless legislations and policies targeting Muslim communities and undermining the rule of law for all. The International Witness Campaign is basically gathering international partners to commemorate this anniversary of 20 years of the failed war on terror, as we call it, and it explores the impact, the failures, and the future of the war on terror while promoting solidarity, justice, and dialogue. So please make sure that you go to 20yearsofwar.com, check out all the information there, and get involved in the campaign. Now, today we're going to be talking about many serious, important topics, and more so, we're going to be talking about how the war on terror has impacted our lives personally as the Live Updates family, working in the high risk conflict zones, things that we've faced over the last 10, 15 years in our lives. So it's going to be very personal. Inshallah, before we start, you guys know that this is Live Updates family. I'm going to give you all 1 second to, not 1 second, I'll give you a few seconds to introduce yourself in a couple of lines so that everybody can get to know who you are. So I'll start with my right.
I am Abdullah Jabbar, one of the many faces / filmmakers of Live Updates for Syria.
I'm Sumaya Jabbar, this guy's sister, and I also work in the media team at the face for the organisation.
So you lot are like the young bloods, yeah? MashaAllah. And then onto this side.
Okay, I'm Zaki Sharif, the sister of our presenter host.
Mummy, she's Mummy, my big
and,
sister.
Also working behind the scenes in Live Updates since it began.
I'm Raquel, and I've been a part of Live Updates since the beginning. Been out here in Syria since 2012 now, alhamdulillah. And through our work, we've also been a part of many activism projects as well, alhamdulillah.
Okay, so inshallah, we're going to be talking about sanctions, Muslim sisters and how the war on terror has impacted their lives, Islamophobia, Guantanamo Bay, citizenship deprivation, anti-terror legislation, Schedule 7, and many other things. But before we go there, let's talk about 9/11, because that's basically where it all started. Everybody, in a sense, remembers where they were when 9/11 happened. So, who wants to go first?
Except for her, because she wasn't born.
Except for her, because she wasn't born yet. So, Andrew, you're probably like tiny baby as well. So we'll start on this side. Where were you when 9/11 happened, and what were your thoughts about the whole situation?
Right, so going back, was pregnant with my second child. He was a toddler. I'd gone to visit my mum, and watching daytime television, and all of a sudden everything just changed, and it was all the war on terror, which initially just seemed like kind of like a scene out of a movie rather than anything else. And then the rest kind of went after that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's crazy for me because I don't even remember you being in our house. I remember coming home from school dinners and seeing the planes crashing to the Twin Towers and basically running back to school and telling everyone this is what I saw on TV, but I just don't remember you ever being in the house, so strange.
Yeah, I couldn't remember before, but now I have vague memory of you coming in.
I think you just,
And
I
then
think you just
no,
made that
I don't know. And I
memory
think, and I
in
think
your
I actually
mind.
explained to you what was going on because
Maybe, possibly, you never
because
know.
he was young. He was what, 13?
I would have been, yeah, something like that. 2001, yeah, I would have been 13. Interesting. So I was like year 7, year 8. What about you, Raquel? You'd have been younger as well.
Yeah, I was, I think, in year 6. We had a swimming class that was cancelled because of everything that was happening. But at that time, obviously, we were still in primary school, so we were all like watching the news, seeing what was going on. But at that time, not really understanding exactly what was happening and why it was happening.
So they actually put it on for you in the school?
Yeah, we had the trolleys, the TVs on. So they brought the trolley in the classroom and they put it on. And in every class, everyone was just watching the news. And then we came home.
I think that should have
And
come
then
with
it
some
was
kind
all
of
over the
permission
news
from
as
the
well.
parents first, really,
Yeah.
to get kids to watch that because it was graphic. I remember, I think, even in my mind, the bodies coming out of the building.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want kids to see
I
that.
feel like people jumping out.
Yeah,
of the
Yeah,
buildings.
and then we
people
got
jumping
home,
out of the building.
and it was all over the news when we got home. And then, yeah, obviously at that time we didn't really understand what was going on, but over the years as we got older, we did feel the effects of obviously what had happened at that moment.
I think, yeah, maybe for us at that time, obviously these guys, they wouldn't have felt the impact of the war on terror.
Yeah.
And we probably didn't as well because we were still in school and stuff.
Mm.
Maybe more so for you, what were the implications at that time? How did 9/11 change your life?
I think directly, the very first thing was that all Muslims were considered suspect. I think that is something directly you saw that the Muslims.
So straight away you felt that
pretty
now
much straight away, I think.
all eyes are on you.
To be honest, it wasn't a case of when I watched it, there was nothing in my head. Like now, what happens is obviously when a terrorist attack happens and everyone has to
They just say
apologise.
terrorists. Yeah.
It wasn't nothing like that. It was just simply watching it as some British citizen watching it. It's only until the media picked up on it and you started to go out, you could feel that animosity from neighbours.
At that time, were you wearing niqab or?
No, we used to wear a headscarf. My hijab just didn't have a face covering, so obviously visibly could tell that I was Muslim.
And I think that's one of the things, obviously, for sisters, it must have been a lot tougher because obviously for guys, sometimes it's easier to not, on the outward, look like Muslims, whereas for sisters and for women, it's always a lot more difficult because you guys are kind of open ambassadors for Islam and Muslims.
But how did you feel that was? Did you have any? Was you wearing hijab and stuff?
Yeah, we was wearing hijab to school, but I think that kind of in secondary school years, even the way that the teachers would be towards us, you kind of felt that there was like this feeling like we would pray in the corridors. And I remember one time there was a geography teacher and she was so rude to us for praying our salah in the corridors. And I feel that without all of that happening and the media pumping out, Islam and Afghanistan and, Osama bin Laden and all this type of stuff, then those feelings wouldn't be there.
I think, for me, I'll be honest, I think it kind of picked up momentum as President Bush started to make his speeches, and especially the one that sticks is where he was saying that you're either with us or against us, and that's the attitude that then the general public took on. Then it was a case of you have to now start declaring, your stance on it. And at that time, to be honest, I don't think a lot of people actually knew what their stance was. Obviously now, 20 years on, a lot more people are with the conspiracy theory kind of thing. That time, you couldn't actually really consider it, apart from the few voices that were saying, look, how was it even possible for planes to come so close to those towers without being detected? And
So
even to say that, I think it was kind of like, at that time, it was like, that's insensitive, don't even kind of go there.
Yeah.
But whereas years later, I think they'll be aware of like the Simpson connection to it, but and all of that. So then more and more of these conspiracy theories have come out. Or
So what impact did it actually have on your life? Because obviously your story is quite unique, and the implications for you in the beginning years, maybe post 2001 up to like 2010, would have been more severe for you than for us. So how did your kind of story start?
I think initially what it is, as with a lot of Muslims around the time, especially those who were more vocal, there was definitely this, you knew that you were being watched. So growing up anyway, in school and that, like in debates, or if we were like, we weren't allowed to pray, and we'd come together, we'd, you know, discuss with the head teachers, or we'd go and do these kind of things. It didn't have a big, such a big implication to it. But whereas after 9/11, if you wanted to go to say an anti-war demonstration or criticize the government in any kind of way directly, you knew, okay, got to be careful. And I think so. I think that's where it kind of started, and then because obviously you're saying about, I was visibly, you can see that practicing, and obviously even my husband at the time as well, he was visibly, you could see he'd wear the long clothes and the imam on his head and a long beard, so it had that look of the Afghan man, if you want to say. So I think all of these kind of things, it just made people a lot more wary. When we moved to a new area, I think after 9.
I'm just laughing at the Afghan man. Someone who wears a long thobe. Afghans don't wear long thobe. It's like a Saudi. It's like a Saudi.
Yeah,
maybe
to be honest, he used to actually wear kameez back then, and then it gradually got longer, and that through the years. So he did actually back then wear kameez. I think.
So what you're saying is that you
I don't know
and
if
your
you realise that with the
husband.
brothers. Did you not realise with the brothers? A lot of brothers started to cut down their beards at that time as well.
To be honest,
You
obviously,
was young,
obviously
but
at that
I think-
age, for I was just, you know what I mean, living my life. So,
Okay, but okay.
so I didn't really feel it, but
What I would say is with the.
I'm saying obviously because you were practicing, you and your husband, you were like, you know, trying to practice Islam, going to Islamic talks, lectures, and that kind of stuff. Did you feel that obviously, look, now things are becoming more difficult for us? You actually had that, because I'm finding it hard to imagine. I never really felt that in the UK until obviously I started getting involved in Palestinian activism, and when I went to Gaza and all of that kind of stuff, then I started getting stops, Schedule 7 stops and all that kind of stuff. But when I was actually in the UK, I didn't really feel that. And yeah, so
I think, I don't know, like with me, to be honest, like, alhamdulillah, coming from East London, we're quite lucky that we're around, you know, a certain environment where there's a lot of Muslims and it's really cosmopolitan. People actually talk to each other and that as well. So it was only more so when I moved to like another area, and as well East London, but it was just towards Wanstead, and there was a bit more of that apprehension. The neighbours didn't want to speak to us if we came outside. They just kind of like literally just stare at us. A few of the neighbours moved away from the street, and it was only obviously when you start to speak to them. And I remember even we had an engagement party in our house. It was just the men at our house, and we were at my mother-in-law's house. And the neighbour, when I came back, she said, yeah, I thought they were celebrating 7/7 because it just coincided with 7/7 the following year, I think it was. And she goes, but so I look over your wall and I saw, you know, it was all men, no women. But they were a lovely bunch of lads. They absolutely.
this was in 2007.
This would have been, I can't remember what year 7/7 happened.
7/7 was 2007, right?
It was the 7th of July, but I can't remember.
7th of July, wasn't
It was 7th of
2007.
July, but I can't, I don't think it was 2007.
It was earlier. It was earlier.
You're not so insensitive. You don't know the dates of terrorist attacks that take
I would
place.
say
No, it wasn't
2007, it was before
2007.
2007.
It was earlier.
I don't think for us,
2005.
like, something that we
For
cared
me,
about.
2005, I was
Obviously, we
what,
were
three?
young.
I was
We
doing
weren't
3,
thinking about that.
I was
Because
2.
you guys are young,
I
so
don't even know what 7/7 is.
Obviously, the things that we
the
saw.
train bombings.
Oh,
and
the
the
train
bus and the
bombings.
bus.
Yeah, obviously for us, it was just kind of.
Wait, how old did
Jokes
you do that anyway?
What?
He was 5.
I was
6.
5,
You
innit?
was-
I was
you
born in
was 5,
2000.
and
But
I
what I'm
was-
saying is,
I was
like,
2.
my life
Yeah.
in England, like, when it comes to like the war and terror kind of thing, it wasn't really, because we were all young, we were all kids. It's kind of just put out in jokes and stuff like that. So like, I don't know if you guys remember that Hamza Arshad, he done a video and he was like, "Wagwan Taliban," and that became like
Yeah,
a
everyone
thing.
used to come around
And
saying
anyone that you saw, like, oh yeah, look, he's got a little bit of a beard. He's like, look, he practices. Like, oh yeah, Wagwan Taliban, like a little bit of a joke.
Is that what you used to say to me?
Not me. I never ever said that to
Is
nobody.
that what you, is that what you boys used to say to me?
You never
What
know.
is
You
that?
never know.
Taliban.
Never know. But yeah, that's kind of what we saw from it. Obviously, it's a media strategy in a sense. Like my mum was saying, with the whole President Bush coming out and telling people you're either with us or against us. That's a clear statement that listen, you have to make
But
your
he was
stand.
actually saying that because you were laughing about that. But I don't know if you remember when you did first start school, you were bullied
Cool.
very briefly,
Yeah, you called
and it was
Taliban.
because they were saying you're son of the Taliban. So he did, and even that's around Muslim children. I think it was coming from Muslim
But
children.
yeah, that's how it is,
So-
isn't it?
It had affected people so much that really, even if the small
Because
kids, year one kids, are having to
once
choose.
I spoke about in class. I don't know. We had to write. I think it was year 2. We had to write something, a story or something. Then I wrote about the police coming because obviously we got raided. So I wrote about it, and then the next day, 2 girls came to me like, "Mommy said we can't speak to you," and I was like, "What?" And they're
So
like, "Yeah."
someone.
And the teacher was like, "No." The teacher at the time, she was like, "No, it's fine." Like,
Okay, so right, so you got raided. You have to explain to obviously
Okay.
everybody.
oh, this is I just jumped the timeline. That's why.
No, but it's alright. You know, why
Right,
did you
that's
get
good.
raided? What happened?
Okay. So it was 2007. Yeah, 2007. 2007. A family member of my husband was going to Pakistan with a large amount of money on her. When she got stopped by the police, customs, and she panicked, they asked her whose money it is. She gave her nephew's names. So unfortunately, you know, she was kind of
Do
thinking.
you think she done that out of malice or?
No, just obviously she shouldn't have been travelling with a large amount of money, undeclared money, or it was her money, for wherever she sourced it.
So what, she was just some old Pakistani auntie doing fraud or something?
Yeah, pretty much. And so when she got questioned,
She basically stuck it on you guys.
well, what she did was she got questioned. She gave one of her nephew's names. Then she had he was 12 or 13 at the time, her son with her. So they basically took him and interviewed him alone and asked him for the names of the family members, male family members.
So basically, they interviewed
A
a
minor
minor on his own,
on his own. So
which is
obviously
like illegal by itself.
but it wasn't illegal anymore. As far as the war on terror
Policies
was
Well, the
kind of
politics
going
were probably
on.
changed at the time.
So obviously that's what we thought initially. It was like
So you just got like obviously that
so he
lady.
gave the names of his cousins, which was my husband.
And this is the
one
thing, a
them.
lot of people aren't aware of anti-terror legislation and policies. People always think that it's not going to happen to me,
No.
it's going to happen to other people. So she probably just kind of said, alright.
No, obviously the reaction was when she was held at the airport, and obviously you heard, okay, you know, she's been questioned at the airport, whatever. The reaction is of her nephews or whatever. Okay, we're gonna go pick her up or whatever. We didn't know what was going on.
They probably didn't think it's a
But-
terrorism thing at all. Like
No.
she got caught
the
with
thing is-
frauded money.
The
Yeah.
thing is,
Obviously, she's got shook by the
Probably.
feds and been like,
what it is obviously
these are
in
my
regards to
nephews.
my husband, he's never been arrested or questioned or anything like that in regards to terrorism. Like, so it wasn't something that, even though I think by that time 2007, you're not really thinking.
So then what
About
happened?
these kind of
Because she'd given
So-
their names or it
so
come
he
from the
gave-
young boy,
The young boy gave the
then they
name,
came and raided your house.
and then basically the houses of the
overnight,
nephews, the houses
all
of
our
the
cousins'
nephews.
house, my
So
grandma's
all of them,
house.
all of them
Yeah,
were
It
so I
raided.
was
think
all the
it
same
was
night, innit?
3 or 4 houses got raided.
The morning, actually, not night.
So it
Morning.
wasn't, alhamdulillah, it was at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
The police came, and
I remember waking up to my mum arguing with the woman. She's like, "I'm not gonna wake my kids up right now. It's too early." And mum was like, "No, you have to
no,
wake
it's
up and
like,
leave."
actually,
That's what
I
Mummy said.
had it a lot easier. I've got to
It's
say, I
crazy
had
because I'm just trying to think, where was I when you lot got raided? And I can't remember. I was probably doing some
No, what
madness.
happened
I don't
was-
know what I was doing.
so
But I
the
just
whole
can't
year,
remember you getting
2000
raided. I can't remember. Maybe I was like in a different city. I don't know what I
I
was
think
doing.
to be honest, I'll be honest about it. We didn't make such a big deal. It was actually quite cool about it because God Allah that day, like we'd heard stories anyway before of how people are raided. You know, the Forest Gate
At
shootings.
that time, was a
You
lot
know
of
the
people.
Forest Gate shootings that happened near to our house. We actually heard that when it was kicking off, and the 2 brothers, their house got raided and they got shot at.
And they were innocent, right?
They were innocent. In the end, they were innocent.
And they got
weren't
paid
terrorists.
compensation.
I don't know that. The last
I
I
think they
remember
got paid
they
compensation.
They
yeah.
tried to do one of them for, I don't know, something on his computer to do with pornography rather than terrorism. But yeah. So we knew of all of these kind of cases. So when they came to our house, God Allah, that night, like me and him had a bit of a tiff. So he was downstairs, I was upstairs, and he heard people outside. He just said, look, put your hijab and abaya on. So They came to.
So did they keep the door down? Did they?
I don't
We
know
had
what
a
their
rubble
intentions.
outside our house, so we
We had gravel,
this is my
yeah.
dad just
So-
heard them
Someone
He
walking.
was
knocked.
sitting downstairs after
He
Friday.
opened the door.
He just opened the door. He opened the door.
I remember
He
one
said
day
to me,
when my mum and my dad told us that my dad's like, yeah, I opened the door, they were standing there.
yeah, so
So
whatever
he
they were
opened the
planning
door
to, he'd
before
already
me.
opened. So then they were like, okay, let us in. He said, obviously not until you show a warrant. They said, we don't have to produce a warrant.
He said we don't have to produce
No,
a
we
warrant.
want access to the house. And he was just like, no, you're going to have to wait because my wife's putting her hijab and stuff. So alhamdulillah, I put my hijab on. They came in, they were already back before I even came downstairs, and they were downstairs searching kitchen and garden and everywhere. They asked us to leave the house because that's the thing, they weren't even arresting him, they weren't holding him. It was a case of you guys vacate the house and leave the car behind.
It was when they came.
So
So they basically just told you get out of your house,
get out your house.
they
leave the
wanted to
car,
search
and
it. Your dad can
At
pick
you're
you
free
up.
to
Your
you're free
dad
to
can
go.
pick you
Yeah,
up.
at 6
So
o'clock
they
in the
said to you,
morning.
isn't it?
Huh?
They said to you, your dad can pick you up.
Yeah, they said to me, yeah, because I was like, how are we supposed to go? Like it was.
So how did you feel? How did you guys feel?
I
at
don't,
that
the
time?
people came in, so obviously by this time, khalas, they've been told my mum to wake us up. My mum didn't wake us up, but we eventually woke up ourselves. And the first thing I remember seeing is people with their shoes on.
How old
in
were
the
you?
house.
5.
5, and you remember that?
And I saw them with their shoes on, and I was like, you can't wear shoes in our house. You take the shoes off. And the woman, excuse me, I think she said okay or something.
And
But
then
then-
she said to you, oh, I'm really sorry.
I don't know what she
She said,
said.
would you like me to take them? I said, no, by now.
But then-
I was
but then
when we
she
came-
was already
when we
upstairs
came
in the
back
house.
home, there were footprints on my bed, and I just remember feeling like she'd done that by purpose. Like I told her to put her shoes on, and there was white footprints all over my bed, and I was on the bunk bed.
So what they basically did was they came, raided my house, raided his brother's houses. So there was like I said, there was 4 premises raided, and it was strange because they were told to stay in their houses, and a hotel was arranged for them.
And
For
you
us
guys
guys,
Yeah, it's not
told
fair.
to
we
get out,
we were
but-
told,
yeah.
yeah, just
Figure it out.
take your handbag and go. And obviously, I was actually 9 months pregnant at the time, so I was like, look, I've got my baby bag. I need to take my baby bag because I'm about to have a baby. And they were like, initially they were like, no, you can't take it. Then they said, yeah, you can take it. Little Missy, she was really small, but she was active, so she kept going and they'd search the bag, and then and put it in a
Something
place
back
where
in
we're
there.
going to take it. She'd go, bring it back and put it next to me because this is Mummy's bag.
Yeah.
So for the kids, I was trying to do anything that I could for them not to get worried or scared, because there's
What was it, waking up with us having all these random
there
people
must
in
be
your
like
house?
15,
Like, what
20
the heck is going on?
men and 1 woman.
Well, when upstairs first, I remember when waking up, there was just a woman upstairs.
Because I
And
said to
then-
him,
yeah,
I'm not gonna,
because you're not-
because I said, look, you come upstairs with me. I'm not going to wake him up. Obviously, he's a cardiac patient. So I'm not going to give him any shots.
Shock. But then when we
So,
went downstairs, it was like,
Just give me a little
what
one,
is
and I'm going to give
going
them
on?
breakfast. I'm going to sit them down. I'm going to explain to them what's going on. And she
So
was,
then, what was the results of the?
the result of it, in
raid?
the end, they were in the house for, I think, I can't remember, about 24 hours or so. Well, actually, longer.
Yeah, longer.
It was longer. They kept the car initially, and I said, look, I need the car. I can't be going to like the other side of London like that, like 9 months pregnant and 4 little kids. And the end of it was they raided the house, and about a week or so later, we just got a letter informing us that their dad is now on sanctions. What the United Nations
So there was no
sanctions
proof.
was,
There was no proof, no evidence. It just
what the
said your
letter
husband
actually
is
said,
now
yeah,
on.
that's actually that's what happened. Was I received a letter from the Child Benefit Agency, and that was the first notification we had. He was reminding me. A letter came through the post, opened it, and it says that the father of the children is suspected or maybe a member of Taliban or Al Qaeda, and obviously I'm paraphrasing, but you're not allowed to tell anybody about this.
Wow.
Yeah, and basically, the reason that Child Benefit is sending me this letter is because it's illegal now for me to give him any money. So I was like, what on earth does this mean? Like, you're trying to speak to somebody who's 9 months pregnant, who's got 4 little kids. I'm not understanding what is going on. So naturally, my
So at
first...
this point, did you just decide that we need some legal
No,
advice?
yeah, exactly.
or-
So that was the first thing. I was like, what on earth does this mean? Now, this letter is telling me, it's an official letter, and it's telling me I can't speak to anybody. So who can I speak to? Kind of thing. So the first thing I did was obviously get onto the phone with a lawyer, and then it's like, okay, you need to come and see me ASAP.
So what was the impact for you guys after this? Did people start shunning you? What was like? Obviously,
Yeah.
she was saying that even in school, like
But this was after anyway, because
Families, members
this
was
was
in.
way after, because I just wrote about it when I was
Okay,
younger.
the first
that
the
we
first
got
thing that
rid of
happened
the
straight away was obviously the neighbours that just kind of gave them more reason to take a step back from us, Saying that, I had some really nice neighbours. Shirley, John, some of them that were really, really extra.
What are you saying? Like
nice.
the non-Muslim
The
neighbours
non-
were
non-
more
to be-
braver
to
than
be
the
honest,
Muslims.
I had no Muslims on my road. I was the only Muslim.
But even in
Yeah,
terms of the
we
family
know
and
that.
stuff,
Next door
in terms
neighbours,
of,
I'll tell you, like my direct next door neighbour, they were from Trinidad. So they were anyway, like one time we gave them some food from the barbecue and they said, we don't eat your food kind of thing. So they were like, when I initially moved in. But then he started to become like really nice. And we're just building like a relationship with the neighbours and stuff. And then this happens and you're like, okay, like start again kind of thing. But then saying that, like I said, like, you know, with like the help of like Shirley, who she was a Jehovah's Witness and part of the neighbourhood watch, and that she'd done a lot of like kind of good PR work and kept an eye on us in a positive way. And so that was the first thing. Also, what it was my doctor's surgery receptionist at the time. She was a friend of mine. She came by and the police said, oh, you can't come in. She'd been trying to call us. And obviously, like I said, I was pregnant. I was about to have a baby. So she'd come to check and said, no, they're not going to be here for a little while. We're just doing a terrorism raid. So they just spoke to her openly, left her in shock. We didn't have our phones for about a week or so then, because obviously
Had nothing.
everything had been taken, so there was no way to contact her. She couldn't contact me, I couldn't contact her. So they just left people in panic and stress until we came back to the house.
so they left people in fear. So
Yeah.
that all of your neighbours,
All of my
they create
neighbours.
that environment where
Because my
everyone's
house
scared of
wasn't
yourself.
like it was kind of a bit like a cul-de-sac. It's a very small road, so
A
it
bit
was
like a
about,
close, yani.
yeah. So it was just like it really just kind of made that fair and that thing that nobody knew why they'd come except for its terrorism.
Yeah.
So that was the thing. Then I had my baby, and the family members, which really surprised me, the family members didn't want to come over to see the baby. And they had a meeting amongst themselves. I said, yeah, when she's over at her mum's house, then we'll visit her there. But they were
Wow.
afraid to come because obviously we've got Muslim men in the family, and they were afraid that maybe then if the house is being watched or whatever, they're going to be being watched
Subhanallah.
and they're going to be, you
So
know.
this is what the
This
fear
is what
was
it
like
does,
between
and
the
that's
Muslim
family.
community.
Well, you know what our family's like.
Yeah,
So that
our
really,
family's
really,
very
that
supportive, yeah.
really hurt because it was the first time ever in my whole life, and I was about 20.
And this was
something.
all because of a case of mistaken identity, auntie that was doing what she was doing, and you lot got sucked into it. Because a lot of people find it hard to believe. They're going to be like, "Look, something must have been going on."
It's
You know
gone
what I
from
mean?
fraud to terrorism, like.
From fraud to terrorism.
It went for it just because that's the thing. It was just kind of like really strange, the way that everything kind of fell together, and then on top of that, not even to arrest them, not even to charge them, and then this sanctions, which, like I said, didn't even know what sanctions was. It was afterwards you realise it's pretty much like what.
See, the
a
thing is,
government
there's
would
yeah,
put in
there's
a
so many.
country.
See, this is the thing. There's so many cases of
Injustice.
Muslims being unjustly put under control orders. There's a case of the Birmingham Four. I advise everyone, if you can, search up the Birmingham Four. Basically, it's a case of entrapment where there's so much evidence that these 4 young guys were basically sucked into a trap by the government, and now they're sitting in prison. And at that time, there was a lot of terrorist attacks going on in the UK. The lawyers for these guys, they basically said, look, we can't have this now because the jury is being influenced by current events. But the case wasn't allowed to be postponed, and basically they got found guilty. When you look at the case notes of this case, it's crazy how they got found guilty, because it's just so clear that it was entrapment. And sadly, a lot of people always think, especially Muslims, that look, it's not going to happen to us.
Yeah.
They must have been, where there's smoke, there's fire, they must have been doing something. So
The thing is, what happened was then after this, they really tried as much as they could to try and get something on him. So what started happening was, give it a few months, brothers started turning up and saying, you know what, or sending a message through, look, we've been shown a photo of you to my husband, or, you know, just like we've been shown MI5, went for a job interview, we went there and there's a guy with a suitcase of money telling us, give him some
it
information.
was harassment like
So
that.
they started to actually,
Spying.
harass-
They
you know,
want
one brother
something
actually
on
said,
him,
he said, I can't remember if he went for a job interview as a teacher, I think, and he went for a job interview, and this happened to him, and they started asking him about certain lads in the community, and he said he started crying. He said, I was just in shock, because the thing is, I think the main point, what hurt so much about the war on terror for myself personally, is is that rejection from that country that we always thought was, firstly, we always considered ourselves British, right? The other thing is that we were like the optimum of justice for the whole world. You know, it's only when certain things started trickling.
Okay, so while all this is happening and this is all going on, you just wanted to get a break. You wanted to get away from all this. What happened
What
next?
happened was actually what happened was for the next year or so was this sanction thing. We were constantly taking it to court. So we're basically, my husband and his legal teams were fighting against the government about this sanctions, and then every time something has happened, for example,
And these sanctions, what did it actually mean? Because
It
most
means
people don't
he-
understand what that actually means.
in very, very simple terms, it means that he cannot be in possession of any money. Nobody can give him any money.
You can't work, you can't have a job.
He can, but they will go and inform the employee that he's a
terrorist.
terrorist on sanctions. But he's not a terrorist.
Yeah.
They can't even say he's a terrorist because
Because
he
that's
may be
evidence.
or is suspected of being.
So basically, suspected of being a terrorist.
So
not even, he's not
No, he-
guilty of any
there's actually
crime.
both these words on there, maybe or is suspected of being. So that was one of the first things that went through court, and then one of those words was taken away. So then it was
So
okay.
maybe it
suspect-
was taken off.
Yeah, and it was made into suspected of being Al Qaeda or the Taliban, and that's I clearly remember having those two words on there and just kind of laughing
Wow.
like
What does
Like-
it mean?
not even just obviously.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah,
Like,
innit?
you know,
Yeah.
So
They
it
went
made,
on basically
it made
doing what
life
they want on
very
the system.
difficult for you guys.
It made
in-
so what it was basically like saying what it meant was he can't have any money, nobody can give him any money. Obviously now he can't work, so I'm claiming benefits. So I'm the person who's in control of the money. Like I said, the child benefit, I'm in control of the money. If he ends up with any money, the first suspect is me, right? So I've just had a newborn baby. First, I was pregnant and just had the baby. Then I'm liable to be arrested. So it was still okay, straightforward. It's money. Any transactions that we do have to be on a card. Yeah.
What do you guys remember about this kind of stuff? Do you remember any of this that was going on? Or were you lot too young? or-
No, I remember as well. I remember something about the lawnmower. We couldn't have a lawnmower.
Okay,
We
we
could
couldn't
borrow
have
a
a
lawnmower
lawnmower.
or
You
something.
couldn't have a lawnmower.
I
We-
just
yeah,
remember something
okay.
about a lawnmower. I have to borrow and get from the
What
neighbour. It
happened
wasn't allowed or
was,
something.
it wasn't allowed because we didn't
Really?
have a lawnmower.
And we couldn't buy one.
And we couldn't buy it, so we wanted to borrow it from the neighbour.
But we
But
weren't.
Most people watching this are not going to
we
believe
were
it.
informed
They're
that
gonna
we were
be like,
You know what's the
informed.
craziest thing is?
But how
A
did
lot
you
of
find
people
out you
watching
borrowed
this.
the lawnmower?
Yeah, but a lot
I
of people
haven't-
watching this have like seen movies and stuff where they show this.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
And
That's true.
This is what
Yeah, I think that's what's
every
changed.
single time it reminds me in my head. Like even I was watching something right now. It's crazy. I was watching Will Smith and he was talking about when he made Enemy of the State. And he's like, at that time we were talking about something that's going on
Right now.
right now.
Yeah.
He was like, at that time it was just crazy. It's just like a
So
little
people
movie.
didn't know, but they were
But this
basing
what it
this
is.
stuff on reality. That's what it actually felt
Like
like.
even
The
in
line
the
became-
even like
Because that's- I remember, yeah,
famous
it's like-
movies of the world, Avengers, you got all of this stuff. This type of stuff happens
Mm-hmm.
inside of it where people are, you know, shunned by society. They're
Just put in a
suspected
box
of
of
being
clothes.
something, and then that's it. They have to, you know, live by themselves. No one wants to talk to them. No one wants to be with them.
They're like the outsiders.
Yeah,
like-
when
Yeah,
they
and
go
then
off
what
into
does
the
that lead them to
countryside
do?
and-
They want to
Yeah.
go exactly to the countryside
And
to
their
go and
life
live
is-
somewhere else
yeah.
because they
What
can't
happened,
take
like, for
it anymore.
example, with him, he was now he's about 7 years old, and he wants ice cream, and he went with his dad to the ice cream van outside the house, and we got told then by the solicitor it's illegal for him to go with his dad, or his dad to go with him rather, because they've got money. So he's too young to have the money. He was 7 at the time.
So it was just illegal to get
So he
ice cream.
Yeah.
yeah,
Illegal to have a lawnmower.
I had to,
illegal
basically,
to have
I
ice
had to know the lawnmower issue was what he was not allowed to borrow anything of monetary value, which means that he could not borrow a car. So that when the car broke down, or the car was actually on my name at the time, but obviously the day that they raided, then after we realised that there's certain things.
Oh, the alarm.
that
I remember, yeah, the alarm always breaking. Every single, like, few weeks, the car alarm is breaking, and obviously stressing my mum out, annoying her as well.
But you see with
But I
these
just remember it's
sanctions, though,
from the time they raided
You
it.
got a good memory, man.
she has
You got a good memory.
yeah, it was I got a new car, and then all of a sudden the alarm stopped working.
Okay, how did this all have an impact on obviously your relationship with you and your husband and
What was happening is, I'll give you, like, to be honest, anything that we were trying to do, we're trying to live a life like a normal family. We arranged a trip, okay, we got permission, we can, go on a trip somewhere, or we can go out of the area, because he wasn't on no. It's not like the tag. He's free to go anywhere. He just cannot have any money.
But couldn't you
But he
take
had
this
to go to the
decision
solicitors
court?
once.
Like-
We were. It was going through the High
The
Court.
sanctions.
It went through the
everything.
Supreme Court. Alhamdulillah, every time it was in our favour.
Yeah.
But what would happen is
Something new, I think.
is
isn't it?
what would happen is that
They'd bring out something new.
the government was informed of the verdict 14 days before we were given the verdict. So that gave them time to
change
amend
it.
whatever they needed to. So we'd be literally off sanctions for about 15 minutes, and then
Wow.
bam, you've got another letter, or you've got another.
So there's
Cool.
basically loopholes to keep you guys in this kind of repetitive
this-
cycle.
Yeah, in this.
I mean, this is one of the things that I felt with obviously my citizenship cases and stuff. And obviously, to be honest, when all your stuff was going on, I wasn't really privy to what was going on, because obviously I was living
you
my life. I
were
was at
probably
uni.
thinking, let me stay away from these terrorists.
Probably, I was at uni. I was doing my thing. But yeah, so how did that impact your relationship?
It strains a relationship, because obviously
everyone's
what's
being
basically
stressed
happening
all
is,
the
I'll
time.
give you an example. I went out with him one time. I have to give the money. We was at a Muslim shop. I think it was actually the mechanics. So I had to give the money. He can't give the money, and the guy's just looking at him like, "What is your problem? Like, you've got no shame. Like, why is your wife
paying, but yeah.
paying that
For you.
and doing the transaction whilst you're standing there?" After that, he refused to go out with me again.
I remember
He
you guys
was like,
were like,
"There's no
just
way
always
that I will-"
arguing then.
Yeah, it did.
It's always just like
it put a strain on
Gone
the
from
marriage,
this a
because
peaceful house to just chaos.
he was
And everyone's
basically, what was
being
happening was
stressed.
he was being forced to stay in the house. And what it was initially like, it was that we had to do all transactions via my debit card. So they would put the money in, and I'm really grateful for the legal team that we had. Initially, the lawyer actually broke the law by giving us an amount of money, because when they obviously...
You don't get the lawyer in trouble.
Well, they know. Then he gave us money, and then he let them know. He said, well, you can't leave a family of 6 at a time and a baby on the way with nothing.
So
No,
you're
literally,
smart.
you can't. And he's a non-Muslim lawyer, and
From the
very
who's a
grateful
nice
that
guy.
we had a really good legal team. But he really what happened was, so obviously with that, it was first initially a credit card. Everything has to be a credit card. We live in East London. We live on, buy groceries, buy like, for example, ice cream and that kind of stuff. I was like, look, I can't be all the time buying with a debit card. I can't go to Tesco's or wherever all the time. I need to have some leeway, some money. So he was allowed to have, I think it initially started £10 a week he was allowed to have, which basically covered his travel fare to the solicitor once a week. So that was his tenner gone. And the rest of the money I had to do. And what I was doing was, and I'll be honest, I was looking at the law, and I was doing some research. Who else is on these kind of sanctions? And there was me. On one hand, I've turned into an accountant. Literally, I have to write down everything, because you have to buy it on the credit card, you have to produce the receipts, and you have to have everything written down,
Yeah.
right? So I was literally dreaming about numbers. It was getting like crazy. So I started saying, you know what? Sorry, not doing that. Sorry, I'm not complying. Sorry, if I've got it on by my debit card, it's already there, it's logged in the system. I'm not providing a receipt. But they were claiming things like, if I done my Asda shopping, I might go and return it all and get cash back, which you're not going to do anyway. They're not going to give you cash back if you bought by a credit card. So it was just. So I was like, look, I'm sorry.
So they were just making your life difficult.
They were making
Drive me crazy.
they were trying to break up the family, because the sanctions. I was only on sanctions because of him.
Yeah. Smart.
So if you left him, then
So-
you're free.
So if you left him, you were free.
Yeah, and so previous
So-
couples prior to me had done that.
So then eventually, what did that led you to do the same?
Eventually, yeah.
So eventually
I separated
you got
to pot
separated
holes,
with your
yeah, it
husband.
was alas, you can't live together because it's too much like you. So obviously, if a 7-year-old, no, he wasn't 7, he was 5, so she can remember. It's bringing that. My family doesn't want to come around. Certain members of my family don't want to visit now. He's can't have brothers coming around, or brothers don't want to come around. And he was very active, was a very social person, you remember. So, and then, if I need anything, I've got to go out 12 o'clock in the night or 1 o'clock in the night. If we run out of
Milk
something,
and nappies.
yeah, milk and nappies.
I would
Yeah,
not have
milk
gone to that.
So- So obviously that must have been tough for you, but it must have been obviously really tough for him
It's
as
a
well.
lot hard because it's psychologically it's breaking him down. And on top of that, top it all off, what is he guilty of? He doesn't even know because it's all secret evidence.
See, it's crazy because this reminds me of the movie that we watched recently on Muhammad Salahi. What was it called again? I thought it was a movie, really good movie that I think everyone should watch.
Mauritania.
Mauritanian, and a lot of it is psychological warfare. That they're trying to break you, and that's what it seems like, that they were trying to
What happened?
trying to
They
physically
were,
break
because
you.
for a time I could fight back. So like I said, I started becoming like really like, okay, no, well, because it was like you could only buy what is basic necessity with the money that was our money that they were giving to us. So they were basically saying you can only buy what's basic necessity. So I said, okay, well, for me, basic necessity is 3 pairs of shoes.
Yeah.
And they were like, no, it's not. I said, yeah, I need like home shoes. I need boots for outside because of the rain, and I need trainers. And they were like, no, you can't have that. But it's because I'd done a bit of research and heard about another brother who'd been asking for so long for a pair of shoes, and he had holes in them, and they weren't letting him buy shoes with his own money. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna do certain things. And alhamdulillah, years later, I did actually meet a wife of another person who was on the sanctions, and she said to me, so you're that person who caused a lot of issues and got rulings changed. And I was oblivious to that at the time, but it was just like if
So what you're saying is that by putting pressure and trying in a sense to fight back, you can garner some of your rights back.
you can, but it's really
It's
it's
very
hard
difficult.
work.
Wasn't there like a group of sisters going through the same thing? Like
No,
there was like a
Obviously,
support.
everyone's
there's like a support
Everyone's
network.
scared to.
There's
Yeah,
like
but just
pushing
like if you're
someone.
going for it, you kind of become fearless. You kind of just like how your mum was like fighting against what they wanted.
What I was
her.
doing at the time
When
is
the
I was
other
trying to
sisters
be his
at the
strength.
same-
I'll be honest, I was trying to
Yeah.
be his strength at the time
Mm.
and make him feel like he's not a failure kind of thing. Because
Yeah.
on the end of the day, he hasn't done anything.
And they're just taking
You
his
know.
rights away. Everything.
So,
yeah.
and then for the children who were trying to live a normal life, like we were going to go to Wales, get away, go to Wales. Now, on the way, we went to buy a backpack from eBay, yeah,
Mm.
and we're on the Tower Bridge. All of a sudden, all these police come out,
Wow.
and it was over a congestion charge or something, but all these police come out.
So you're
They
being
take us, so the
watched
car
as
is
well,
being
like-
followed.
This is
Yeah.
before you got separated.
It's before we got separated.
Yeah, the car was always we always knew there was
You had
we
spies
someone
behind you,
all
people
the time.
spying.
So
All the
we're
time,
just
all the
like
time.
obviously we're driving in central London. All of a sudden,
Police.
there's all these police around us, and they ask for his details. He gives his details. Nothing's coming up in the system, and they're like, "No, you're lying." And he's like, "That's my details." So they asked me, and I'm saying that's his details. And then they were like, "Okay," like they didn't know what was
The
going
car.
on. So he's like, "Look, can you just speak to my solicitor?" So they spoke to the solicitor. Said to me, "Right, love, you just drive your kids and yourselves home." And we're in central London. I'd never driven in central London at that time. I was like, "You're just joking. I'm not driving 5 kids home from central London. I don't know the way or whatever." So I just asked the copper, "Can you just drive the car and just drive me to outside the police station and I'll wait however long it's going to take."
So they took him to the police station and then.
Another car, and then another police officer, he drove us to...
Okay, so let's.
That is thing I
Alright,
remember, but
so-
I don't remember this.
I remember the story.
But that-
You remember the story?
I don't remember. Now I'm saying I remember the police
The
guy.
guy
drove
got
us
Driving
home.
the car.
Yeah, the guy driving the car. I remember staying outside the police station till it got dark. I remember all of that.
Yeah, I remember Daddy coming out.
I remember
That's
the
what
feds
It's
coming.
Like,
So-
we're like,
on the main
So what I
road.
want to ask you guys is obviously, did this happen? Obviously, because you're making decisions now on your own. Was this one of the reasons that kind of pushed you to leave the UK? Did this start making you feel that, look, I need to find somewhere else now to live?
Definitely. Because, like I said, it kind of got rid of that illusion that we're safe in the UK. There's a justice system. We have our rights. Whereas, initially it was always like we're British. There's nowhere else to call home. In 2006, I did go to Syria for a little while. It was okay, but what happened was a lot of the people who came back from Syria as well, years later I found out a lot of people had ended up being put on tag or arrested or had some kind of violations to their civil liberties after coming back from Syria. And the same happened with brothers who went to Egypt at the time. What was happening was people were leaving the UK for studying, for dawah, for whatever reason, and getting picked up in other countries on the information given by the British government. Yeah, and it happened to us when we were in Syria briefly.
So you were even afraid to leave the UK because you were thinking, okay, I
Initially,
could
years
go
ago,
somewhere else.
Dad was like that. And Dad was always like, "No, this is the safest place to be." Like I had, years earlier, I'd wanted to. As soon as I had kids, I was like, "Look, I want to go to a Muslim country and live in a Muslim country to raise the kids." And my dad was always like, "No, it's not safe. Like you don't know what other countries are like." And then there's always their records and that,
So then you tried to go Pakistan, and then what happened there?
Come
This
2000.
is after you got separated.
Yeah, this was like
9.
This is after we got separated in 2008. 2009.
Anyway, so you tried to
Anyway,
go. What happened?
So I get stopped at the airport.
And you got the kids with you.
Yeah.
All you guys.
So, because I
Yeah.
remember this clearly now.
Yeah, so we get stopped at the airport. So that was my first like section 7 or schedule 7 stop, where we've been through all the checks, we've done everything. We're literally gonna get into that plane.
We
Now you can imagine,
go to the line.
it's me with 6 kids, and we're just about to get into the plane, and all of a sudden, sorry,
At the same time.
yeah, it was literally because that's literally what it was like.
I remember
It
just
was
2
like-
guys going for this side of the suits, or 2 guys and a woman.
So
I was like,
yeah.
what was
And
that?
they were
She
probably
remember
following
clearly,
you the whole
and
I remember,
time.
I remember
But
exactly.
it
I
was
was
just
like,
like,
Mummy,
for me, the first thing was
there's
like,
a
come on, if
policeman
we were
there.
gonna do this, yeah,
Wait, why?
Why did you do
why
it at the
didn't you
beginning?
do it? You know, why make me
So
go
they gave
through-
you that hope, and you thought you're leaving, and then bang.
And then you've got the dogs on the pushchair. So baby's in the pushchair.
And
obviously that was
she
like,
was
come on,
scared.
like,
She
there's
was
a
touched by
baby.
the dogs.
No, it was your younger brother who was in the pushchair, and then I've got child number 4 at the time who had a phobia of cats,
Anything
an
fairy.
extreme phobia of cats. So I was like, look, she's going into panic mode. I've got one who's cardiac. I've got baby, and I was like, look, for crying out loud, like, what are you doing? And they're like, we just the dogs have detected something. I was like, what the dogs? No, it wasn't
I
drugs.
know it was a drug.
It wasn't drugs. What they actually said to me, I said, what? We're like, what? Like drugs or whatever. There's like snacks in the bag, and they're like, maybe like, I'm sure one of them like, he turned around and said like bomb stuff, and I was like, are you for real?
We got like 6 kids. Yeah,
I've got 6 children with
So
me.
they were like, you've got explosives. They're like,
Yeah, they're like the
detective
dogs.
explosives.
What the
They're
dog-
just
the
like,
dog-
no, just like, don't worry about it. You know, it's like
The dog
all
went for the
cool.
bag, and what he got out was a Mr. Kipling Swiss roll cake.
Mineral,
It
bro.
was a
The
mini
dog,
roll,
the
mini
dog
roll.
like,
It
the
was-
dog
it
like
was
the
Cadbury's
mini rolls.
mini
Cadbury's
rolls.
mini rolls.
Cadbury.
Everyone likes Cadbury.
Clever dog.
So then basically, we just okay. You guys, what do you remember of the stop? Then what happened
I
after
remember
that?
then after that, Khalas, so just like, you have to come with us. So we're all obviously standing with my mum. And obviously, because I remember first, because we always knew from after the raid or whatever, there's always police behind us. Wherever we go, like, oh look, Mummy, there's a policeman there. Oh look, there's an undercover guy there. So as soon as I remember, I just turned and I saw the 2 guys coming with their suits. I was like, Mummy, look, like, they're police. And then after that, my mum was like, Mum, obviously, then she realised, oh, we looked around. Because the woman was coming, I think, from the front, and there was 2 men from this side, 2 men from this side. And so they took us to walk, obviously I don't know where they were taking us.
We went around. The
But they
whole
just,
place.
took us around the
The
whole
whole-
entire
We went on
airport.
a tour of the
We
airport.
walked through, 'cause I remember, I've seen we walked through the same place
Yeah, we
twice
did
as well,
round
innit?
and
And in the,
round.
what's it called, a lift, in the lift, out the lift, in the lift, out the lift.
You wouldn't think like Britain, Great Britain,
No.
you know, would employ these kind of tactics with
But
children.
even that's just like
and-
mind game, because I swear we've come past this place already, like, why are we here again?
So in the end, we was taken into a
To a
small
small
room.
room,
Yeah.
So it was like,
Like the side of the table, innit?
yeah,
Because
it was like
probably like that. Because I remember just one table, and we were
like
sitting
3
there.
meters wide.
It's strange for me because I'm kind of detached from all of, even though we're the same family. Obviously, I was kind of at that time out at uni, studying, living out on halls and stuff like that. So for me, this is actually the first time I'm hearing all of your stories, and I was kind of very detached from it all. And obviously, Qadar Allah,
I think
further down the line,
I think on one hand, what it is the thing is that obviously she's a bit more vocal than me, but at the time when you're going through something like that, you don't actually go and tell anyone that you're my younger brother, and we didn't confide in you. We didn't say, we weren't saying, because there's that fear as well. If you're breaking the law, like I told you, the first letter that was given to me was basically telling me I'm not allowed to speak to anybody. That was going on.
yeah.
On top of that, you know you're always being monitored. So when I was speaking to like our older brother, and I said to him once, I said, it was in Chessington, and I said, I swear that's the MI5 agent behind me, because I'd been questioned by MI5.
Were you just paranoid, or was it actually really
That's what
MI5
everyone-
agent?
Everyone was,
Yeah.
but with this
People
occasion,
listen to us. People say, look, your mom just. And I was like, no, we know, we see.
Yeah.
People
them.
saying to you, your mom's crazy,
We
and
see
like,
them. We see the guy standing there. We know. You can just tell when it's a policeman.
but what happened with this particular guy anyway, I said that, look, I swear he's an MI5 agent behind me. And then everyone was like, no, don't really dismissive. Then what happened was one of our cousins got caught for, I think it was some like street fight or something. And when I remember our family went to court, they saw the same
The same
MI5
guy.
agent there.
There's some rubbish at the jobs.
So then I got a phone call from court like saying, can you describe the MI5 agent that was there at Chessington with us? And I was like, I told you. I told you.
this is like some movie stuff. Like,
Yeah,
really.
because what
But
happened
it's
was I wasn't
Well, you
actually
think it's
speaking to- I
like
was speaking
mind
to our
games as
brother.
well.
But you know what
I was
I
speaking to
used to do?
his-
I remember multiple times when we realised, so obviously us kids, we just like pointed at them and like, Mommy, look. So I remember like 2 or 3 times, a man starts acting drunk. So after that, then they start acting like they're just a drunk person and they go.
Yeah.
Raquel, if you knew all this, like that we had like
With
some
two tours.
terrorist family, would you have got married to me?
Just thinking about it.
Think about
I don't
it,
think it
no.
would have mattered. I don't think to me because
Yeah, I'm only joking. That was
Yeah.
not a real question. That was just a joke. But yeah, so subhanallah, it's
So
interesting.
anyway, you was asking, so yeah, then basically, yeah, that's when I made up my mind. I don't have a place in the UK anymore.
And then alhamdulillah, eventually,
And then another mix of things. That's where your story comes onto it. Obviously, you guys,
yeah.
that's where you pick
Our
up, and
first
then
holiday. Ciao.
Without
No.
getting harassed, or did you get stopped as well? On the
no,
way?
then when
No,
we were
we
gonna go when we got stopped going to Pakistan, then after that I didn't decided we're not gonna go
But even
anywhere
that, you know
out
what
of
they did
London.
then?
so at that time, you lot were going to Pakistan. They didn't let you get on the flight. You missed your flight. Everything.
Missed
They
the
told us
flight.
to pay
They
God
said
away.
that
We
they
could see the
confiscated
pay
the
right
money, so I had some money on me. Obviously, the kids. What happened with
We
you
got
guys?
we got illegally searched and
We all had obviously our Eid money
we had
because it's close to Eid, so
But
you know,
£20.
we wanted that to stay.
So they were basically all of them
Grandpa.
were searched and patted down,
Oh,
and they were
yeah.
all kids.
and then
So he was what 9,
I would have been
your
7.
sister was 7,
Okay, I would have
you
been
was 5.
So then after that,
Oh, this is older now. I'm a bit older.
When you came here.
It's 2009. No, this is 2009. I'm a bit older.
I'm 9.
3, 4, 5, 6.
so this was
I'm
2009.
9.
7,
So
5.
this was 2009. Yeah. So that's interesting because obviously this is when I started getting involved in obviously Gaza. I went to Gaza first time in 2009, and
It was
getting involved in the aid work. That's when I started kind of getting Schedule 7 stops and etc. etc. And maybe some of that was because of association with all the stuff that was going on with you guys. But then obviously as I started getting more active, every single aid trip that I would go on, I would be held. I think obviously you guys remember when I came back from the Mavi Marmara,
Yeah.
I was the only British or the only Brit from the British contingent that was held.
that was 2010.
That was 2010. So, and I remember obviously a lot of the non-Muslims that were actually on the Mavi with me, they started protesting and there was a lot of people waiting. And I was just like, listen guys, you're asking me the same questions, you ask me every single time. The whole world knows where I've been. Do you understand?
You've seen so much
It's
as
been
well.
global news coverage. Why the hell are you asking me where I've been, what I've been doing? You know, I've just flown in on a Turkish a jet which has flown me and the rest of a British contingent. There's hundreds of people waiting for us in the airport. You know, I just taking the mic. I just want to go home, and after I've taken a break, then whatever you guys want to speak to me about, I don't mind. I'll speak to you. I'll tell you whatever you want to know. And because people were protesting, they've said, all right, Mr. Sharif, you can go. So they only ended up holding me for about 5 or 10 minutes. But it just goes to show you.
It might have felt like 5 or 10
isn't
minutes
it?
to no, it's quite a while.
Half an hour.
Yeah, well, in comparison to normally getting stopped 2-3 hours, getting out
How
shortly.
long were we there? We
Was you married then? You wasn't married then?
No, no.
No, it wasn't married.
Next year we got married.
So did you already know that he was like getting stopped and things like
No.
that?
No,
Was he an
obviously knew he was
activist?
on the Marvin Marmara, but didn't know about him getting stopped and anything.
I don't think that's like something like.
That's not something that you put on your CV and say, okay,
Oh, yeah.
everywhere I go,
Every time
everywhere I go, you know, they stop me and ask me
But they
questions.
didn't stop us when we went to Turkey though, did they?
Yeah,
Did
honeymoon.
they stop us on our honeymoon when we went to Turkey?
I can't remember.
I don't think
I
they
can't
did.
remember. On the way
They
back,
didn't not use, but they
On the way
did.
They
back.
stopped
Another
us, they
sister.
searched us in Switzerland and we had the stopover and when they searched us.
yeah, that was on a
Got
convoy,
searched.
wasn't it? So
No, that was just obviously travelling.
I can't even remember. My memory's
I
so bad.
remember.
I've been stopped so many times that I don't
But
even remember.
when we got taken as well, they wanted to speak to us, and I was like, you know, speak to my kids. You know, they're like trying to ask us questions. But even then, one of the guys with the suit, what he did, he pulled the suit up and he had a gun, and he had a silver gun. I think that's the first time in my life. Not even think. I'm sure that's the first time in my life I ever saw a gun.
So, alright, I want to take it a bit forward because we've spoken a lot about sanctions, and obviously your story is unique, and I think a lot of people haven't heard situations like that. But obviously, moving on, one of the big things that I think's impacted all of our lives is obviously citizenship deprivation, and obviously it's no secret that I am one of the Brits that's come to Syria that's been deprived of their citizenships, and alhamdulillah, all you guys I think still have your passports.
I don't
Alhamdulillah.
think
We think.
We
We
don't
don't really
know.
know.
Inshallah.
Yeah, but you haven't got no letters like me,
Yeah.
so you
We
should be
don't.
We don't
alright.
have an address.
And so let's talk a bit about Shamima Begum. Obviously, Shamima Begum's in the news right now. Everybody's talking about her. What do you think? Do you think she should be allowed to go home, especially as you now, AJ, you're considering going back to the UK? And one of the questions that I'll ask you. So the question is two questions. One, do you think Shamima should be allowed to go back home? And you yourself, how do you feel that you might possibly face, deportation, arrest, all of that kind of stuff upon return, if you can even get back?
If I, it's a if but maybe scenario. I don't know if it will happen or not, but of course it's something that's in my mind.
I think obviously, look.
My work's out there, innit? Our work is very clear, very thing. But again, obviously, you losing your citizenship is a big thing, and that shows. And this goes on to the Shamima Begum thing. Do I believe that she should go home? Yes, I do. I do believe she should go home, and I do believe that she should get trial in England. But I work in media. I know what these games are in a sense, and I believe that they're using her as a strategy to show that, listen, if we suspect someone of being a terrorist, we can say, hello, mate, your citizenship's gone, and goodbye. Do you understand? We'll never see you again. She's not the only one that's lost her citizenship before.
So what you're saying is because she's not eloquent and she said like dumb things in the past, it's easy to kind of,
Obviously,
paint everyone as, look at these
That's
people,
what it is,
they're
that's what it is.
unremorseful, and you know what, they don't deserve to have their citizenships.
Look, the Windrush people, they've lost their citizenships. There's a lot of them that are getting sent back. There's so many people that are losing their citizenship. But Shamima Begum's the only one in the limelight. Why? Because they know that they can play off this. Look, ISIS bride that went to Syria at 15, she done... First of all, the first thing I would say is she was 15, so you guys should have some remorse for her, that a little schoolgirl went to Syria, didn't know what she was getting herself into, and she's gone there. And then if you want to say, okay, she went to ISIS and she has no remorse for it, then my thing is, why is it plastered every single place? Do you understand? It's made to look like this is what the citizenship deprivation, the next strategy for it. We're gonna help Britain by getting rid of these
But do you think
terrorist people.
I personally, with the whole citizenship thing, I find it's very unfair. So you kick someone out of the country
Yeah, of
and
course.
you leave them for another country to deal with them.
When she knows that
Well,
she'll be on death
she-
row if she goes back to Bangladesh where they want to send her.
Not even just Bangladesh. Obviously, if she stays here, or there's so many, and not just her. There's so many
Yeah, definitely.
ISIS members
Yeah.
or other people that have done crimes abroad. Just say, and it's so easy for a country to take back their citizenship, right? Why? What does the other country gain from that apart from a whole load of criminals? It's not. It's like in Australia.
Yeah.
How Australia's
So
like, you don't
basically
just
you're
go
saying
and you don't
you're
get
saying
rid
it's
of
just
your
a cop-out.
yeah. If you don't
Yeah,
get rid of
they're
your
throwing their
problems
problems on other people.
on other people's issues, your problem, your issue, deal with her in the right way.
Yeah.
Bring her, take her back.
Yeah, she should go. She should
Take her
get trial.
back. Obviously, the thing is, anybody who travelled anywhere, like initially when I
See.
came out or when you came out, did you think it was forever?
No, we had in our mind 3 months.
Exactly.
Even still, when we left, we got stopped. How long? 5 hours at the border, and we were told, we don't allow anyone to go to Syria because of this, and this. And we were going with aid. We were clearly going with aid. And even our plan was to only stay for how long? 3 months till till my first appointment, their first hospital appointment, and go back. But then, Qadar Allah, we ended up staying. But why is it just that they can blatantly see we're an aid convoy bringing aid to Syria? They stopped us 5 hours in the police station, questioned us, asked us about the charity money we had on us, and made so many issues for us. Even till now, there's a court case going on because of the charity money that we had on us when we was coming here. When it was clear we were coming here only to help the people. SubhanAllah.
I mean, it's interesting because obviously when it comes to the whole citizenship deprivation, I was watching back one of my interviews that I done with Channel 4, and before my citizenship even got taken, I was kind of speaking about the fact that we were being victimized and harassed, and I kind of had a sense that obviously there was no kind of citizenship deprivation laws at that time, but I just kind of maybe I was watching it back. I was like, "Raw, did I know I was gonna get my citizenship was going to get taken. Because obviously one of the things that was going on at that time is when we obviously had our first child, Khadija, she was born in Turkey. Obviously we had iqamats or visas to be in Turkey, and we could go in and out of Syria. Obviously that's when you guys came and joined us out there. We tried to get her passport, and obviously that was rejected.
Yeah.
So we kind of felt as if, okay, Britain wants to wash its kind of hands off us.
Even though they took the money out of my bank account, we had done the forms twice. Do you remember? We done it twice.
Are you complaining
Did
about?
we ever get that money back?
No.
Are you complaining about 50 quid that they
It
took
wasn't.
from
It
you?
was 114. I'm sure it was like 100.
You know the exact number?
So you got to graduate the UK for 114
Yeah,
quid.
but still,
stole our money.
obviously, and they took the money, and then it was like we applied for it once, and remember they came back. There's a little mistake on it, so we applied for it again, and then we gave them all the details to contact us on. We gave them the address, everything, and there was nothing, no explanation why. At that time, we were both British citizens, so why could she not get a passport?
I think
I think that's the big worry for me, obviously. Like when I came out here, initially it was okay, I'm going to come out here to see the baby, which was obviously Khadija. See you guys. Obviously, once we started talking about your work and stuff, and I was like, right, it'd be nice to come and see and help in the camps or whatever. But the longer it took you guys to try to get, because it was during all that time.
Yeah, we spent
you
the
were
whole
trying
time busy.
the whole time we were in Turkey, you were
Yeah.
trying to get the passport.
Yeah.
Then when we came into Syria, you're trying to get the passport. Then it kind of puts that worry on the kids, like they're punishing.
Children.
You know, if they're
Baby.
punishing the next generation
Yeah.
effectively for what they're accusing the parents of doing, if anything. Kind of thing.
see the thing is, like, people always see Great Britain as this civilized Western democracy, and when you hear about this kind of stuff, obviously there's so much, you could say, dirty laundry that kind of exists when it comes to Britain, when it comes to rendition, torture of their own citizens, and a lot of this, if you check out Cage, you'll find out about a lot of the people who were basically, you know, the British government were part of basically giving information to countries like Libya and Egypt, and these people
Syria.
were taken, even Syria, and basically tortured, which is nuts. You wouldn't think that Britain would be involved in that kind of stuff. And when it really dawned on me was obviously when I started trying to fight the allegations that were made against me, which is obviously I wasn't even accused of being Al-Qaeda, I wasn't even accused of being a part of a terrorist organization or doing any terrorism. I was just basically told I am seen as a security risk, and possibly aligned to some of these groups. For me, obviously, to be honest, it was kind of a relief when my citizenship was taken, which some people might find crazy or strange that I'm saying that, because it just allowed me to focus more on my work and helping the people. And I never really had a thing that I want to go back. Even now, I would like to go back, maybe possibly meet the family. But for me, it was always about clearing my name. So when we started appealing the case and I started unraveling British legislation, I was astounded that obviously you've got stuff called secret courts, SIAC secret courts, and that's one of the things that I publicly spoke about, was about how unjust this system was from, you know, Britain, this democracy that claims to be, you know, being the most just, to have secret courts where you can't even see what you're being accused of, the evidence that's being presented against you.
Yeah.
I just found that crazy, and that's why in the end I decided to boycott these courts, because they're just kangaroo courts. How can even your lawyers don't have access to the evidence that's being presented against you?
Yeah, it's just mind games
So
to make you.
it's like judge, jury, and executioner. They're accusing you of something, and then they're judging you, and basically they're presenting the evidence and doing everything. So what's the point of me even being involved in that whole
You don't even know
process?
what they've got on you.
But the thing is, if you don't stand up, and that's kind of what I felt was, if you don't say anything, then they just do more of it. Like, why don't people know about sanctions? Why did you not know about citizenship? You know, them being able to take that, because these things have actually been going on for years. The first people that I know whose citizenship was taken away from was an uncle and his sons. They went to Pakistan.
And then they just got left in
They
Pakistan.
just got left in Pakistan. The women, they came back, were going to come back. The families due to come back, and the men got stranded.
So half the family got left there,
Yeah, so
and
the
half
women
came
could
back.
travel and the men couldn't, and they're
That's
still
crazy.
stuck there. It's been years. Now, obviously, that was my concern with like him or the kids. When I came out here initially, like I said, it wasn't a long-term plan. It was just, you know, come out and see your work and stuff and see if we can help. And then the longer it kind of went on, then you see these kind of laws and stuff. And in the end of the day, once they became adults, I've always said to them they were free to go back home. But then you see those who want to go home, they're not let back into their countries of origin. And then what I found always really strange was the fact that people like Shamima Begum left the country so easily. As young girls, they left the country so easily, and certain people
So what
came out here.
are you
constantly.
alluding to? You're alluding to the fact that
They
it was
left.
so difficult for you to get out, but
They
Shamima
left. They
and these
left.
girls,
No, but
who
look.
actually there's actually evidence as well that
They
they.
let little girls out. There's so many grown men who were known to have like kind of strange ideologies or extreme thoughts. They left them in the UK. They didn't allow them to leave, which wouldn't it have made more sense? Let them go out and keep them stranded how you are, and keep the youngsters, the young girls, and the ones who aren't a threat in. You know, to be honest, it's just like really, I think the whole legal system kind of made a lot of question marks arise. The more that you study it, the more that you look at the cases that Cage highlights, and there's other organisations as well, Amnesty, there's Reprieve, there's Liberty, all of the work and the good work they do, Code Pink. The more they highlight these things, the more you become
I think.
come to the reality. We were living in a bubble. We were actually
That's what I
living
said,
in
they
a
put you
big
in a box and
bubble.
just
So what would let's start with you guys to wrap up this podcast. What would your message to everybody that's going to watch this podcast be when it comes to the war on terror and the environment that Muslims are living in at the moment? AJ, you can go first. You're on the far right.
I don't know, innit? Like, it's a crazy one. That's we're used to it because that's what we've grown up in. But that's what it is, innit?
I'll just say to for our generation, people like our ages or whatever, to educate yourself on all of this. Like for me now, I read about Guantanamo Bay, people that were in Guantanamo Bay, and subhanAllah, there's one sheikh, this is his book, his name is Sheikh Faiz al-Kindri, and he was taken to Guantanamo Bay for being an aid worker in Afghanistan before 2001. So for him, for example, like something that, I don't know, I think
Is this
That's
book,
good
is
to
book
know.
in
I think you want to
English?
explain what that picture is. It's not a sword, yeah?
no, it's a
It's a
pen.
fountain pen.
A pen
Taking
and
it
an
to
arrow.
a arrow. No, the book is in Arabic, so alhamdulillah, I can read Arabic. But for me, for example, I try to educate myself on things that kind of have mutual, I don't know, I don't know how to explain this.
That you can relate to.
Yeah, relate to. So for example, the sheikh as well, he was an aid worker, and he was taken, and he was subhanAllah kept for 14 years in Guantanamo Bay. Yeah, so just educate yourselves on.
Okay, what's your message, Rakam?
I would say as well for everyone to educate themselves on the policies that they have in the West and all these legislations that they have against Muslims, because like you said, one day it's this person, tomorrow it could be anybody.
That's why
And I think that and I think as well, we have to know for our children as well, like how it's affected our children now. These laws and legislations have affected our children. Well, I would want the world to be open to my children, open to my kids. But because of these policies and their ways of looking at people travelling to countries like Syria and engaging in aid work, which is, not a problem, it's closing the world off to the next generation, which is not fair.
But that's what I felt, because do you believe, or would you ever say, as I know this is what people say, is it's your own fault because you went there, you chose to go out of the country, it's because of you that your children have lost their rights.
No, I would say, I'm still a British citizen. My family are all British citizens. My grandma is a white British lady. My children have every right, no matter what I've done or where I've gone, to be able to have that passport. Alhamdulillah, all of what we've done is open, it's on the internet, all of our work is out there for everybody to see. For what reason have they decided to have that rule and put that on our children? It's not fair,
That's what, because one thing I don't want, people watching this to think that, we're so anti, England or whatever.
That's
but
what
we do have grievances.
I've always said that my choice, if our choice was to come here, I wouldn't say I want my children, they have to stay here. I want to give them that choice to be able to study in Egypt, to study wherever they want to study, to go wherever they want to go. I don't want to have to say to my boys, you're not allowed to travel the world, you can't go anywhere. But I can't even, right now, if hopefully in the future I do have that, that choice to be able to send them wherever they want to go. But right now, that's not even, that's a struggle for us to try and think of that. We have to work hard to try and get to that point,
What's your...
I'll be honest.
your
Okay,
closing
like I said, I don't want anyone to
statements?
think that we're anti the UK or anything like that. But the reality is, it's not as it seems. There are a lot of things that are going on in the background, and if you choose to open your eyes to it, you'll see it. Or if you're brought into it without wanting to be brought into it, and that was a fair for me, to be honest. Obviously, with having sons, or a son that fits that stereotype, profile. Those kids that like we was talking about last time about Jean-Claude Jimenez, John Charles Jimenez, when he got shot, and it was completely justified. It was completely fine just to shoot a guy with a backpack. I would have hoped for him to go to uni, and he would have been traveling on the trains and stuff, and just for him to be able to be shot like that, it was a big worry. And, it might make you laugh here, but I remember back then, in school we listened to Bob Marley tune where he says he's a illegal alien in New York, a Jamaican in New York, and that's how I started to feel. Once you get hit by these laws, that's how you start feeling
like
that is not your place.
alienated.
You're not wanted there anymore. So it kind of and alhamdulillah, I'm actually happy that it actually led me to actually become independent and come out and see the big wide world. Because before that, all I ever knew was the island of England. So
I think...
So I'm actually grateful, to in that respect. I'm grateful for the war on terror, because it gave me an insight into things that maybe we never would have ever come across that had it never.
I think for me, I'll sing the praises of the West and even the UK when it comes to certain issues. I think for me, being like a dissident or a detractor or whatever you want to call me, for me to be able to speak live on BBC One at peak time and speak against citizen deprivation, I think that's something that's praiseworthy that I can do that. But when it obviously comes to anti-terror legislation, I think that there's so many things that have to be spoken about and that Muslims in the West really must understand. I think some of the things that you're hearing today sounds like a movie, but it's really happening. And for Muslims in places like France, Belgium, things are even tougher. They can't even have charity organizations. So as Muslims, I think it's really important that we are aware, and that's why I encourage every single person to go get involved with the International Witness Campaign. Go check out 20yearsofwar.com. Understand what's taking place. I mean, this conversation today about the war on terror, there's so many things that we could have spoken about that we didn't speak about today. Guantanamo Bay, Bagram, rendition and torture, Dr. Afia Siddiqui, Babar Ahmed, Shakir Amir, and the list goes on and on and on. But today we just wanted to talk a little about the Live Updates family and some of the things that we've faced unfairly because of the war on terror. But alhamdulillah, we're always thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because ultimately these tests, these trials, they're all there to make us stronger. And for me, I have no regrets. And I believe that the work that we're doing, even to speak about this and trying to raise awareness, is very, very important. And we encourage you guys all to do the same. We hope that you've enjoyed this podcast. Please like, share, and subscribe. And ultimately, we hope that you are in good iman and faith. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.